Hey everyone, it's time for an update on what I did last week, where I used some vermiculite on a couple different products like beets and cilantro, and also on the sunflower. And I also did a little experiment with where I stacked some wheatgrass so that it was weighted, and then I did the top tray without weight. So let's see how all that turned out, and a couple of little things I have going on. So let's start with the wheatgrass. The wheatgrass that was on at the right here was the bottom tray. So this tray had the other wheatgrass tray stacked on top of it for a weight. At first, I thought that the weighted tray was doing better, but as time's gone on, I kind of think they're pretty equal. So my conclusion here is that you really don't need to stack wheatgrass to get a good result. It's going to do well either way. Over here, I've got a little bit of basil. I harvested a bunch of that last week, but I still have quite a bit left. This is that curled cress, also known as peppergrass. And last week when I showed this video, there was a lot of like soil and seeds stuck to it. And now it's ready to cut. So that will go in a spicy mix and probably also be sold on its own. This is my nasturtium. I know I'm probably not saying that right. I can't seem to get that right. And it's kind of outgrowing the container really. And I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I've actually tried some of it, and it's really good. It's like a really unique flavor, a little bit spicy, a little bit peppery, kind of hard to explain. It's unlike anything I've ever really had before. And I was gonna let it flower, and then I was gonna sell it with the leaves lying in the bottom of a package with some flowers on the top. And I was gonna charge quite a bit for it because it's not your average thing, but this was a first experiment, and I think I might actually just chop this up and sell just the leaves and then move on to trying it again later. Some spinach. The spinach is actually doing quite well. My last spinach didn't do all that well. It tends to get kind of leggy and they want to fall over, and that's fine as long as the true leaves come in really good. And we'll see how this does. It'd be great in a mix, just as something to add in. It's a new tray of red garnet amaranth, and this tray is doing pretty well. This will probably be harvested to go into a mix, and it could grow a little bit longer, but it's doing pretty good. And I haven't watered this one hardly at all. And remember how last week I showed where I was getting a lot of die-off, and I thought it was from underwatering. I still don't know if that was underwatered or overwatered, but this one I've been really light on the water, and it's doing pretty well. Here is an experiment with beets, where I covered them in vermiculite. And as you can see, it worked out pretty good. There are still some with seed holes on them, but for the most part, they're clean. There's not a whole lot of seed holes. And so, compared to my last batch that I showed you last week, where I had the soil stick itself together and create a shelf and then collapse back down on top of the seedlings, that's not the case with the vermiculite. So, it's working pretty well there. Now this is some lettuce. And this lettuce, I know for sure I put too much water in it. I overwatered it, and it died off in a couple spots. But I mean, most of it still looks really good. So that's everything that's good is going to go in the mix. Here is some cabbage, and it looks great. This is going to be harvested up to go in the mix, and some of it actually is going to go just as it is. A restaurant is asking for some of that. Here's some clover. The clover I also overwatered and so I got some spots that are not looking so good. But for the most part, it's pretty good. And just because I showed it last week, I'll show it again. The dill's still looking pretty sorry, but it'll actually grow some pretty good dill out of that, believe it or not. Mustard's actually looking great. That's ready to harvest. And here is my experiment with having a stacked sunflower, which is this one, versus a sunflower on top that's just covered in vermiculite. And what I found is that it's not worth the vermiculite. Just stacking them is just fine. I picked all the seed holes, or almost all the seed holes, off this tray last night. The vermiculite tray, I haven't picked them off yet, and there wasn't a big difference. There really wasn't. It's about the same. And the thing with the vermiculite too is it stuck to the seeds, and so the seeds would bring the vermiculite up to the top, which I wasn't crazy about. But luckily, as the vermiculite dried up, most of it just came off, so it wasn't a big deal. But it just didn't add any value as far as I'm concerned on this particular product. I also have cilantro that's starting to come up, and this is cilantro covered in vermiculite. It's coming up slowly. It's really slow, but as you can see, the cilantro that is coming up doesn't have any seed holes on it, so this is probably going to work out quite well. Alright, well, with that, I am going to harvest up some of this. Some of it I'm not going to harvest till tomorrow. I may wait till tomorrow to finish up this video and go from there. Thanks for watching. Here's a follow-up to yesterday. So everything I showed you in the same video, but earlier, has been all harvested, packaged up, and it's all on store shelves right now. The only thing I didn't harvest was one tray of sunflower, which I have an order for that, and a little bit of the wheatgrass. I give some of the wheatgrass to my mother. She likes to use it to juice it. And I also uncovered a bunch of trays for next week. Here's 2 trays of the red rock cabbage. Planted a little bit lighter than I probably could have, but I've noticed that the cabbage kind of likes to have a little bit of space, so it actually might not be too light. We'll see. Also, 2 trays of red garnet amaranth, which I'm afraid I may have waited about 8 hours or so too long to uncover it, but I got a fan blowing right on it right now, and hopefully they'll come into it a little bit longer than I've done in the past. Here is some red Russian kale. It's 2 trays of radish. This is a purple radish and a red arrow mixed. This is the cilantro I showed you. I've uncovered it. It is starting to come up. It's kind of hard to see. For some reason, one end came up quicker than the rest, but we'll see how that does. Some pak choy. These are the beets. They're actually growing like crazy. I mean, you'll be able to see that this was just 24 hours ago that I showed you in the same video. A little bit of the red garnet amaranth that I didn't harvest because I didn't really need it right now, and I don't mind letting that grow a little bit taller, or a little bit fuller, and then I'll harvest that up. That's probably a 1 ounce package right there, which would be about $5, and it'll get a little bit bigger. The spinach starting to come into it. The basil, I didn't water it in time, so it's not looking so great. It may spring back, if not, whatever. Nasturtium, that is overgrowing its pot. Like I said, I don't know what I'm going to do with that. And that's it for now. Next week I'll give you a little bit more of an update on how these new ones went, and go from there. Thanks for watching.